So, what is art? Well, I believe art is all about intention. I think if you perform any action with an intention to create art, then it can be considered art. For example, if I pick up a piece of paper and a pen and I draw something to express some idea or opinion, then it's art. But if I pick up a pen and I just scribble on a piece of paper to check if it has ink, then it's not art. I think what a lot of people struggle with is what is good art versus bad art. And I'm glad you're not asking me that question, because I'll probably piss a lot of people off. But just as a broad definition, I think art is, it requires intention and then some sort of an action to manifest that intention. So what inspired me to become an artist? Well, I think I was always an artist, and I believe everyone is in some form or another. But what inspires me now is frankly everything, but there's a reason for that kind of a generalized answer, because I tend to have sudden bursts of creativity, and what that means is that all the time that I'm not actually physically creating art, everything is being absorbed and it's percolating and I'm processing. So everything from the color on the side of a truck to the color of someone's dress to natural designs and colors in nature, it's all kind of coming in. And so in a way, if somebody really were to ask me how long did this piece of art take you to make, I would say 40 years, because I know that there's parts of my background, parts of my childhood, parts of my travels that are all being subconsciously processed to create whatever I am. So really, I think everything inspires me, and it's a conscious decision to be patient and let things get absorbed and come inside, and when the time is right, they kind of come out in some form of art that hopefully expresses whatever I'm trying to express at the time. So where I'm from and how does it affect my work is an interesting question, because I have a hard time answering where I'm from when I'm asked by people from different places. Partly because most of my adult life I've lived in several different countries. So I spent my teens in India studying and going to school with my friends. I spent my 20s all in America, and I worked and I went to college and graduate school there. And then I spent my 30s in Korea as partly as a professor and then as a photographer and an artist. So I honestly don't know what to say, because I feel like it's divided 33% across 3 different continents. But I think what that does to my work is that even something as simple as the color red has a lot of different meanings to me, and I need to kind of process all of that when I decide to use that in my work, because it has a lot of different meanings in different cultures, and it really makes a difference. So that's just one example, but I'd like to say that my imagination is probably more varied and more active than all the places that I've physically been to. So I couldn't really say if I'm from one place, but I feel like I've been to a lot of places, and I'd like to go to even more before I can answer that question most certainly. So what's my favorite artwork is definitely a question that's going to get me into trouble, but the honest answer is my own artwork is my favorite. I don't know why I would be creating art that I didn't love and that didn't mean a lot to me, and I think whatever artwork is your favorite should be something that resonates with you and connects with you, and that's my own work. In terms of people that inspire me and people whose work I look to for inspiration sometimes, I would say Jackson Pollock, Piet Mondrian, Kandinsky are some top names that come to mind. but it's mostly Western artists, I suppose. Um, but as a visual, I would even, direct your attention to the piece behind me here. That's one of my favorites, and it was one of my first works that I did in acrylics. And it expresses my personality, my aspirations, and the kind of work I hope to continue doing. So yeah, that's an example of one of my favorites. Okay, next question. What is the message I try to convey through my art? That's a tough one because I'm a relatively new artist, and I think that message is still being formed, and it is changing, and evolving. But one thing I would definitely think is an underlying theme to a lot of my work is freedom. The freedom of expression, the freedom to do what you love, the freedom to create the way you want to create. Basically, no rules, complete freedom would be something that I would love to communicate through my work, because it evolves slowly and it changes in direction, and I think that is what you can do when you are relatively free or completely free. So I hope the message of freedom gets across, and I think it's a very complex question, so deserves more time and communication. And that leads us into the next question. How has my art changed over time? And again, there has been a limited amount of time for it to change through, but what I have done is explored a lot of different mediums. I've worked paper on ink, I've worked on canvas with acrylics. I recently created a sculpture piece that's actually unfinished right there in the middle of the room. And I worked on some fairly large scale, 6-7 feet on board with enamel paint. So I think it's changing by me exploring different mediums. But there is still an underlying style that I think is very similar. I work a lot with lines, and I try to explore how I can work with lines in different ways, using different motions and different mediums. So I think it's something that I'm looking forward to exploring along with you guys. Okay, and what is the message I'd like to share with my fellow artists in these tough times? Well, as opposed to most other things in life, I think I'm very optimistic in this sense. When I hear tough times, my attention immediately goes to the word times rather than tough, because time has this inherent idea of moving on and changing. And so, they may be tough now and then they will change and not be so much going forward. And that's what I'd like to tell other artists that may be struggling, that the times change. And so you go through this struggle and you learn from it and you grow from it. And hopefully it'll affect your art in a positive way, and things will get better for sure. So I'd just like to give that message of hope, I guess.